in some ways, like, I think that this is a story about violence and about how a group of men went to war and were traumatized by the violence that they faced and how they took that back into their community, and that they tried to make it so that never happened again. So the children wouldn't have to go through what they went through. But of course, the trauma is imbued in their lives and they're desensitized. And actually, that's what this film is really about. It's about the trauma being passed down from one generation to the next and how that, unfortunately, it continues.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, the former leader of an Irish criminal enterprise returns home in director Tom Harper's period drama, Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. A sequel to the award-winning television series Peaky Blinders, the film follows Tommy Shelby as he returns from exile to a post-World War II Birmingham. With unsettled business and his future at stake, he must face his demons and choose whether to confront his legacy or burn it to the ground. In addition to Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man, Harper's other directorial credits include the feature films Heart of Stone, The Aeronauts, Wild Rose, and The Scouting Book for Boys, the miniseries War and Peace, and episodes of the series Electric Dreams, The Sun, and Peaky Blinders. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in New York, Harper spoke with director Mary Harron about filming Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
So it's been, how many, 12 years, 13 years since you did the first season? Peaky Blinders?
Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I worked on the first series 13 years ago. And so, yeah.
Three of the most, still if you look on IMDb, most popular, most cherished episodes of the whole series. And obviously there was something that meshed with you and the story and with Cillian, right? Yeah.
I mean, there was... I feel like more than anywhere, I think like here's a good place to be honest. But in truth is like at the time I got sent the first script and I went up for it and I didn't get the job for the first episode, and it was a really brilliant piece of writing, and it was one, at the time it was one of the best TV scripts I think I'd read. I really liked the pilot, and I didn't get it. And then I was waiting I was just trying to transition into doing a movie. And I had a movie that I was hoping on and had all my eggs in that basket, and then it fell apart. And I didn't really want to go and I'd done some different blocks of TV, and I was trying to hold out for doing the first block. But then we just had a baby and mortgage, and I was like, okay. And the later scripts were not nearly as good as the pilot. They were written by different writers. Steve Knight, the writer, had he'd written the first three, I think, and then he'd disappeared into movie Hummingbird, and then other writers had come on, and so I came on and I did it, and they were still good. I was still pleased to be able to do it, and grateful for but it just felt like it wasn't as special as the first one. So, but then what happened is I prepped those scripts, and then a week before we started filming, Steve came out of the film and read those scripts and was like, okay, these are good pieces of work, but it's not my story. The story is very loosely based on his life and the stories he was told as a child. And he was like, this is fine, but this is not my story. So he started rewriting them.
Very fast, I guess.
Yeah, well, not fast enough to be honest. And it was chaos. It was we had this incredible cast, and the pages when they came in were great, and a fabulous crew. So it was fine, but it was very, very chaotic, and we would shoot things that would then get cut, and didn't know how it was going to kind of piece together, and it didn't make sometimes it didn't make a lot of sense, but there was a very strong emotional through line, and I think that sort of trumped everything. And actually, it was quite liberating. You know, I'd never, you know, to be forced to turn up and not quite know what you're shooting. You know, in general, I'm very well prepared. So to throw all that out the window was actually, I learned something that it will be okay. You know?
Did that bring something out in you that you hadn't found before because you had to work so spontaneously?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. And you know, there's something, I don't know, like I wouldn't choose to do it that way, but to turn up and just to get the pages on the day, to rehearse it with the actors, to, you know, not having any real shot plans and just watch the blocking and then plan it with the DP. Then I mean, I know other directors do that and that's how they work, but I'd never done it up until that point. So
you'd always planned everything out before.
Yeah, and of course it changes, and you watch it and someone has an idea, or they, you know, like it evolves. Of course it evolves, but you at least had to have that as a backstop, and I'd come with the ideas, whereas this was like coming with nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how did you and Cillian like mesh together, and how did he react to having to work like that?
But he didn't love it. Like Cillian is really prepared. Like it's interesting, you know, in the movie, you know, you have Barry and Cillian, and they're like chalk and cheese. They sort of share some things, and in other ways they're completely different.
How different? How can you describe the differences?
Yeah, Barry, Cillian prepares everything. Barry prepares nothing, and that's quite interesting because they're like they clearly respect each other and love each other, but like Cillian cannot get his head around how that is a way of working.
Does Barry learn his lines before? Up to a point. Because actually one of the things I noticed, which I thought was just a really interesting character choice, was that he doesn't have a lot of lines. He doesn't, you know, a lot of it is just him looking and reacting. He's fantastic in it. I think he's amazing.
I think that's part of it. You know, I think that he really struggles. You know, I think it's not just, I think there's reasons for it. I think he really, just the way his brain works, I think he really struggles to withhold information like that. And the way he learns the lines is it has to be connected with the physical action of the blocking and being in the moment. And I think his brain doesn't really work like that. And so, yeah, I think he's just, you know, I think you can see from his performances, not just this one, but in all his performances, he's got something different about him. He's quite erratic. He's quite,
he's very unpredictable, which was actually great for this because I really didn't know which way he was going to go, you know.
Yeah, and I love that about him. You know, I wouldn't change that about him. It makes it hard to work with sometimes, but like I don't know. You can fight that, or you can go with it.
I actually think he would have been a great silent film actor because there's so much going on in his silences and his, you know, watching or listening that it was.
I agree, and he's got this wonderful combination of strength and just sort of childlike vulnerability, I find.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes, and it's actually between him and Tim Roth after he's been asked to shoot the guy, or he knows he's supposed to shoot the guy, so he does. And then Tim Roth is asking him to shoot him again. And just the reaction, which is quite comic, but so sort of absurd between the two, again. And it's just a beautiful bit of kind of reaction acting.
Yeah, Tim really brought that. You know, Tim came with very strong ideas.
That were different than what was on the page?
Yeah, he wanted, like on the page, that character was upper class, and he wanted to make him working class, and he really wanted to, you know, he was, and I think these are really smart choices, or, you know, brilliant ideas that Tim brought to the table, and both I and Steve embraced. But yeah, he wanted to make him just to work against the sort of archetypal villain, make him more, in Tim's word, more geography teacher.
I love that. It's so you're going from enormously successful, you know, 6-season series, and then you have to, and then years pass, and people have strong feelings about these characters and strong feelings about Tommy in particular, and then you have to make it a movie. And so when you came to this, and I don't know how early you started working with Stephen Knight on the script and on the vision for it, but what went into your thinking about how do we make this world into a single movie, 2 hours?
I mean, that's a really interesting question that I think about quite a lot. You know, the difference between film and television now, because there are so many. it's become much more blurred, I think. Like my feeling is in terms of production values, in terms of what's possible, in terms of but I think that in this case it's a much more singular, I think the main difference is the singularity, or I think there's obviously lots of exceptions, but in this case it was a more singular story than the TV series. The TV series followed a number of different characters, lots of storylines, and this is really Tommy's story. So I think that's the main thing, and then I think it's just, you have to have a beginning and a middle and an end much more clearly perhaps than you do in a longer piece of television drama. And
you're having a finality about it too. You're obviously wrapping it up, but there was also this sort of mythic thing that is stronger here. I think I read that you and Stephen talked about it as a Western.
Yeah,
and like there's a conflict. There's a kind of one-on-one. Well, there's father-son conflict, and there's one-on-one bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Anti-hero, good guy.
Yeah, but the genre thing is really hard. Like we've often, I think there's, some received wisdom that you need to know the story that you're telling or what the genre is, and I actually don't quite know what the genre of this is. It's part gangster, it's part Western, it's part period drama, it's part. But I think I think it's for me, it's Western is the closest, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of, I was thinking the way you use the landscape, around, I don't know, those final shots and when in the countryside, and there's a certain sort of, you don't normally see Britain looking so epic,
Yeah. Well, thanks. And, but yeah, it doesn't have the same vistas as well, I guess, certainly the US, but even those like spaghetti Westerns in, Southern Europe and, we don't quite have that landscape in the same way.
I was thinking about how you use the real life locations, which was a great thing in the series as well. About 3 years ago, I was shooting in Liverpool, and every time I went into a location, what beautiful stained glass. I say, yeah, it's Peaky Blinders, So you had actually they had art directed the entire city. So every time you went in and you thought you were finding something special, it was actually just Peaky Blinders. But I love the way you. I don't know how much in the movie as opposed to the series you're shooting in actual physical locations.
I think the TV series did quite a lot, but I think we did more so. Like I love location shooting.
Me too.
I don't know. It's an interesting time, isn't it? When you can do anything with visual effects. Well, maybe anything, but you can pretty much do anything with visual effects or incredible set builds, or you can create anything, and that's a wonderful thing. But I don't know. There's something for me in this age of AI and technology that the more real it can be, like the heart of cinema or storytelling lies in the imperfections of reality rather than creating worlds. Or again, I'm sure there's plenty of exceptions to that, but it's definitely something I'm interested in.
No, it's interesting because I think you can feel sometimes that when it is because people have to adapt. You can't shoot every single angle. You can't shoot the super wide or whatever, and I think that's good. I think
and I think it affects everything. It affects the crew, it affects the actors, it affects the choices that you make, and just the fact of being like freezing cold in like an industrial state at night, it's like that changes the way that you feel about something.
Like your pig farm.
That is a very good case in point, because like that was we had planned that quite carefully, and then it rained for 2 days straight, and we had plans for the pigs to be in one area and the fighting to be another area, and then we're going to keep everything separate. And then it rained for 2 days straight, and all the barriers slightly disintegrated, and the mud became the slop that you see it. And we realized there was no way to keep it clean at all. Like the pigs were just shitting everywhere. And the actors just were like, well, what are we going to do? We're just going to go for it. And the very fact that we had to go for it, and it wasn't comfortable, and it was miserable, and they could hardly move. I think you feel that, if you'd sanitized it too much, I think that would detract it. I don't think it wouldn't feel as hard as it was.
Was it supposed to be a mud fight or just a fight?
It was supposed to be a mud fight, but they weren't supposed to get, as originally conceived, they weren't going to be like
covered in pictures.
Like,
no,
like that.
No, normally you try not to cover your actors. But you had the same cinematographer that did the first season, right? And has done War and Peace, which was good practice, I guess, for this, for an epic story, and Wild Rose that you'd work. So when you were talking with George Steele, the cinematographer, and did you talk about that you wanted to look different, or that you had the chance to do something different?
Yeah, I mean, I think we wanted to take the same language and kind of hopefully elevate it and continue. And I think that it's lovely working with someone over a long period of time when you get to, build that shorthand and that, I think that we've evolved in terms of the images that we like to create. We've evolved, so I think we still, I think you can still see a lot of what was originally there in those first seasons of Peaky Blinders that George set up. But we've changed and hopefully improved, and like you say, talk about War and Peace. That was one of the that was a wonderful thing in terms of working with a crew, the crew, because we use a lot of the same. I still use a lot of the same people, and that was a long shoot, and we did it day in, day out, and again, there's a rhythm to it. I think that just sort of seeps in somehow. Yeah,
it's funny because when the first season, it looks a lot like Once Upon a Time in America. Was that an influence? Or those?
I mean, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's funny because it's also that kind of in that case it's immigrants, but here it's working class, or it's working class outsiders trying to fight their way through. And being...
that's probably the thing that interests me most about the story. Is it's about because in some ways, like it's a story that's quite different from the things that I'm interested in, I'm a pacifist, really, maybe not like 100%, but like, pretty much. And, it's a story about toxic masculinity, really, in some ways. And I think that's interesting. That's interesting to me. And I think that this is a story about violence and about how a group of men went to war and were, traumatized by the violence that they faced, and how they took that back into their community, and that they tried to make it so that never happened again, and they were forgotten about and overlooked and underestimated, and so they started to take back control so their children wouldn't have to go through what they went through. But of course the trauma is imbued in their lives and they're desensitized, and that then is passed on. And actually that's what this film is really about. It's about the trauma being passed down from one generation to the next, and how that unfortunately it continues.
Yeah, and from one war to another.
Completely.
Although a very different war.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that they were all trying to ensure never happened, of course, history repeats itself.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, one of the things that really struck me from the beginning of the very first season was the music, and how, and I don't know if that came from Stephen or who that first came from, but the idea to use kind of modern music, but that reflected the emotions of the characters. It's something that like David Lynch does, but a lot of he's unusual in using that,
Yeah, I mean, I think that was partly Steve and partly Otto who did the first block, and Otto definitely had a very strong hand in kind of defining that, and I think did it absolutely brilliantly. And I think it's so much part of the fabric of the world, isn't it? And I love that. The composer Anthony Again and Martin Slattery, they were fantastic, and I love the way that they blur from the very beginning. They wanted to work with the band, well, Fontaine's DC specifically, but other band members, other bands.
Fontaine's
as well.
DC standing for Dublin City, not Washington. It took me a while to work that out when I first heard them. Yeah. And immediately they started writing music, and they were sent to me, and we played that on set. And then the rushes would go back to them. They would write it, and then Grian, the lead singer from Fontaine's, would come in, and he came in over a period. So it was a very organic process, and kind of went backwards and forwards. Was he improvising in the studio, or what was he doing? Was he writing, or he was just?
I think a combination. I think what happened is I wasn't actually there for most of his sessions, but he would come in and he would improvise, and then he would take the track home, and then he would rewrite according to what had come out of the studio. Oh,
you don't often get that chance to work like back and forth so much.
Yeah, I mean, he came in probably like a number of times over 6 months. So yeah, it was and again, because he did that, and then he had this idea that he wanted to be like representative of the internal workings of Tommy's mind, and so that he would sing on the score as well as the soundtrack, and they would use stuff that they've recorded during the tracks. So it all bleeds into it's hard to know where one starts and the other ends.
Yeah, and you used some very and Nick Cave re-recorded, or he did a new version.
Yeah, he did. That was
Red Right Hand.
One of the. I don't know about you, but like probably the two worst points for me when like you have to hand over, when all the reviews come out and you just have no control, being a bit of a control freak, having no control over what anyone says, you can't do anything about it. I find that really hard. And then the rough assembly where you can do something about it, but I like it always sends me into a panic attack and find it very.
Oh, when you first see it?
Oh yeah.
I usually go to the bathroom and cry.
Yeah, exactly.
On my own. Yeah.
Once I was waiting to see a rough assembly, and Roger Michelle was there, who's someone that's always been very supportive of me and been like gave me some very good advice at different times, and like at times when nobody else has been quite as blunt as he has, but he's been really blunt about it. And anyway, this time he said, I came out and I was feeling, I think I was white, and he said to me, you always feel like that. And he said he came out of, I think he just made Venus with Peter O'Toole, and he said, I felt so bad after that, and I was thinking about it on the way home, and I crashed straight into the back of somebody else's car, wrote off his car and my car. So it's not as bad as that.
What was the main things after you saw your first assembly that you changed that made it work?
Well, Red Right Hand was one of them, because like it was always written into the script, and I was looking for, like there was all sorts of, you see all the things that you are unhappy about. But I was looking forward to that moment, because I thought at least at that point, Red Right Hand comes in, and that's going to be like the moment of Tommy coming back, and it got to that point, and it just didn't work at all. And
why was that?
I think it was because that song is like a young man's song. It's full of bravado and machismo and swagger, and Tommy at this point is broken, and there are cracks, and he's older, and there's sadness, and it just didn't fit. So we went back to Nick and asked him if he would re-record it, and of course Nick's had
many terrible things happen to him.
Yeah, exactly, and he's older and he's evolved as well, and I think that then he re-recorded it with that in mind, and I think you hear that in his voice. You hear the cracks in his voice and the life and the humanity in a way that is different and has evolved, like Tommy's evolved.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about working with Cillian, and how that had you hadn't worked with him since that first season, then, had you? Or no. So tell me about the difference in those 12 years, and as an actor, as a screen presence, as both in terms of how the character had changed, but also how he had changed as an actor.
Yeah, I mean, he's again like similar to like George Steele. Like everyone's like the same but different,
Right, because older and more experienced.
I think that I think he was in an interesting place when he did. Obviously, like winning an Academy Award is an incredible thing, and his confidence was sky high. But he was also, I think, a little bit like he was sort of struggling with it as well. I think it's probably fair to say that, because if you get an accolade like that, then what next?
Yeah. No, it's almost like it's writing your obituary or something. It's like, okay, is it all over for me because I can't top it or whatever?
Exactly. So you're sort of grappling with that, and that was really, and also like he's a sort of, like a bit of a reluctant king in the same way that Tommy is. I think that Cillian always actually takes some of the energy of the character, and I think that. Like he slightly shies away from the limelight, doesn't he? He doesn't, he's a bit uncomfortable with it. He sort of enjoys it and not prepared to give it up, of course, but at the same time,
no one would.
Slightly uncomfortable with it, and also uncomfortable with the level of recognition. And like he's a very grounded person, and so to suddenly not be able to go to the pub or to take public transport and all that stuff is like.
So that all had changed after the Academy Award. Like
and so I think all of that was slightly being processed, and he probably used that, I think, in the character as well.
Because the character also has gone into isolation or into some kind of
completely,
hermit-like.
But he's very, very. Well, I mean, not in real life, but as an actor, he's so powerful, I think, and particularly playing Tommy Shelby, who's a very powerful character. You know, you'd have like people come in and for, you know, that guy who plays the soldier, like who came in, that was, you know, we shot that in an afternoon or something.
Yeah.
Or a day.
Was he scared about having?
He was, poor man was shaking. Like, and I can imagine it as well. Like,
did you have to kind of like prop him up or just kind of give him a pep talk?
Yeah. And he needed it because like, he was like, all of a sudden he's there facing Tommy Shelby, Cillian Murphy as Tommy Shelby.
Cillian Murphy and Tommy Shelby in one.
Yeah, and I think he felt the pressure.
Yeah. How did you, I mean, had you noticed a change in him as an actor, as, you know, also in terms of him on screen or his screen presence? Was there
I mean, I think he's always been so strong, hasn't he? But like, I think confidence, like what confidence does to actors is a really,
it's interesting, yeah.
It's a really powerful thing. And I think that ability to take risks or to be sure, have conviction in their instincts is incredibly powerful. And I don't know about you, but like I've worked with at times when a very brilliant actor has had something happen to them that's knocked their confidence. They've had something come out that's flopped or they've been criticized or, you know, so personal, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
And I've seen them really struggle with that, and that's affected how their ability to trust their instincts. And but this is the opposite of that. Right. You know, really sure of himself, really like confident decisions, really willing to take risks
on this one. And was that different from that very first season of Peaky Blinders? Was he more uncertain or a little less confident?
I'd say so. Yeah. I mean, still. Strong and sure of himself and knew how he wanted to approach it, but I think it's a different level, I'd say.
Yeah. And what was your process of working? How does he like to work? Did you sit down with him and go through this, just talk through it? Or
he likes it. I mean, we were both very involved in the development process of the script, which I love because it just means that you talk everything, you know, like actually for me, it's like an extended rehearsal period. You know, by the time you come to set, you know, you've been through every scene, you've talked about it. We've been talking about it for 18 months, almost 2 years, I think. So we really knew the story that we wanted to tell. He's a producer on it as well. And so we were very aligned. And we were sort of felt like it was a really lovely process of making a film. Like as far as I'm concerned, or, you know, the way that I like to work, like it was the best. You know, the writer, the lead actor, the producer, we were all there at the beginning, we were all there in the middle, and we were all there at the end. And, you know, at different times, different people take over. You know, Steve was obviously leading the charge on the writing, and then he hands over to me, and Cillian was throughout. And, you know, everyone's got their slightly different roles or their sort of responsibilities, but we were very much a team. And that was great, not only in terms of being able to achieve what we wanted, but also in working with the studio as well. We're working with Netflix, and that, you know, if you're all aligned and clear about what you want to do, it makes you puts you in a very strong position, I think. Yeah.
And he's obviously someone who has tremendous focus and maintains this, that's part of what makes him so powerful as an actor, is this incredible focus on screen, which makes you just sort of watch him even in silence, you know. And how does he maintain that on set? Do you have to, or is he someone who can, you know, do a scene like about, and then, so I've just noticed that some actors, you know, they have to maintain complete silence, or they have to be on their own. And then some actors will just do a scene and then be just like, you know, at craft service and joking. Which one is he?
I think he's like sort of somewhere in the middle, I'd say. Like he slightly stays with the energy of the character. But he can still, but he's definitely not, you know, fully method. You know, he will definitely sort of come out and make a joke and come back. But particularly if it's, you know, you know, as you'd imagine, the more emotional the scene, or the more, you know, the more he would stay within the energy, I'd say.
Because it's a heavy weight, and it must have been emotionally for Stephen and for Cillian very intense to be letting go at the end, in a way, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, but I don't know. Like, I think you're so focused on telling the story. I think, and also if you start thinking about that pressure,
you can't even think about the ultimate meaning. When you did the death scene, presumably you shot out of order. So you did the death scene, and then you did other stuff, which is sort of, you know. So you have, you know, you have that, and then you have to do all other kinds of other things. It was actually one of the most straightforward. It was
as you can imagine, it was a weighty scene, and it was very silent. We just shot it very quickly. There's not much coverage. It was sort of, everyone was so focused. That's one of the things I love about a film set. When it's working well, which it doesn't all the time, but when it's working well, everyone is it's like an organism, isn't it? It's like it's all
like an animal.
Like an animal,
An animal.
And
sometimes the animal's out of control, but sometimes it's a very well behaved animal.
Yeah, and it was a well behaved. I think everyone knew the weight of it, and everyone was just on their A game.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. It's a beautiful film. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America.